Welcome to a new episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your barbaric host, Dom, and this past year has given us quite a haul of horror films. We are finally back from Thanksgiving, had a lot going on with family. Also, I was sick for the last week, feeling way better now. So, really don't want to ramble on too long, so let's just jump right in. I'm going to be releasing another episode, an Oops All Scaries episode, with my top horror films and TV shows from this past year. There is one film, though, that surprised me, mainly because I really didn't start seeing trailers and a lot of marketing before watching the movie. Honestly, one of 2022's best. The American horror film, written and directed by Zach Creggor, in his solo directorial debut. That film is Barbarian.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
This is 476 Barbary, right?
Yeah, I'm renting this place.
No, I booked it a month ago.
Are you sure you have the right place?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
Why don't you come inside and we'll call these idiots. Why don't you just crash here?
Oh, no.
I don't know if you got a great look at this neighborhood, but I don't think you should be out there by yourself. It's dry and there's a lock on the door. By the way, I'm Keith.
Tess.
You take the bedroom and I'll sleep out here on the couch.
God. Keith?
This process might seem overwhelming, but with a little practice, it can soon become a pleasurable experience. This is perfectly natural.
Coming into town for a job interview, Tess Marshall books a remote house in the rundown Brightmoor neighborhood of Detroit. Upon arriving at the house, Tess finds out that the place has been double booked and is already occupied by a young man named Keith Toshko. Initially unnerved by Keith, Tess warms up to him and decides to stay the night. The next morning, Keith leaves for the day and Tess goes to her interview. The woman interviewing her sternly warns her that she should not be staying in the area of the Airbnb. She returns to the house and is chased inside by a homeless man yelling that she must leave. She ventures into the basement and gets locked downstairs and stumbles upon a hidden corridor. There, Tess finds a room with a camcorder, a stained mattress, and a bloody handprint. Tess backtracks and tries to leave, but is still locked in the basement. Keith arrives and frees her. Tess tells Keith what she has seen, and he goes into the basement to investigate. When he does not return, Tess returns downstairs and discovers that the hidden corridor she had initially found leads to a subterranean tunnel, where she hears Keith screaming for help. She enters the tunnel and finds an injured Keith. The pair are attacked by a naked, deformed woman who brutally kills Keith. Sometime later, actor A.J. Gilbrand learns that he's been fired from his television series due to rape allegations made by his co-star. Pressure to sell his assets to pay for legal costs, AJ travels to a rental property he owns in Detroit, the same house that Tess and Keith rented. AJ inspects the house and eventually discovers the hidden tunnel. The deformed woman attacks him and he falls into a pit alongside Tess. A flashback to the 1980s shows the house's original owner, Frank, who abducted women and held them there captive in the tunnel. He would use the hidden room to videotape himself raping them, then rape the subsequent children. In the present, Tess explains that the woman, referred to as the mother, wants them to act as her children. When AJ refuses to drink milk from a bottle offered by the mother, she drags him away and forces him to breastfeed. Tess takes the opportunity to flee and narrowly escapes the house with the help of Andre, the homeless man who chased her earlier. He warns Tess not to stay in the neighborhood as the mother ventures out to hunt at night. With the mother distracted, AJ attempts to escape and ventures deeper into the tunnels. He finds a room that the mother is seemingly frightened of and discovers a bed-bound Frank inside. Initially believing Frank to be another victim of the mother, AJ assures Frank that the police will come to investigate. While AJ discovers the tapes, Frank discreetly retrieves a hidden revolver and kills himself. Tess eventually reaches a gas station and is able to call the police. The officers are dismissive of her story, but she convinces them to go back to the house with her. The police refuse to investigate the house before being called away, attributing Tess's story and behavior to drug use. After breaking into the house to retrieve her keys, Tess runs her car into the mother, seemingly killing her. She returns to the basement to rescue AJ, but he accidentally shoots her with Frank's gun. The two escape the house, discover the mother is missing, and find shelter with Andre. Andre explains that the mother is a product of multi-generational incest by Frank. The mother ambushes the group and kills Andre before chasing Tess and AJ up a water tower. AJ pushes Tess off the tower in an attempt to save himself, and the mother jumps after Tess, shielding her from the fall. As AJ attempts to rationalize his actions to Tess, the mother awakens and kills him. The mother tries to comfort Tess and wants to take her back to the house, but she reluctantly shoots and kills the mother and stumbles away as the sun rises. The director, Zach Creggor, was inspired by the nonfiction book The Gift of Fear, citing a section that encourages women to trust their intuition and not ignore the subconscious red flags that arise in their day-to-day interactions with men. He sat down to write a single 30-page scene that would incorporate as many of these red flags as possible. Creggor settled on a woman showing up to an Airbnb late at night, only to find it had been double booked, as the ideal setup for this exercise. He stuck to the rule that if he was surprising himself with his writing, then he has to be surprising his audience. Quote, "As long as I have no long plan, then no one could know what's coming." He became frustrated during the writing process, fearing the direction of the story was too predictable. So Creggor, with no forethought, decided to introduce a twist that would flip the scene on its head. Quote, "I just wanted to write a fun scene for myself, and it ended up being something that hooked me, and I didn't know where it was going, and then it turned into a feature film." While he was writing the screenplay, Creggor named the film Barbarian as a placeholder, and then as the story progressed, the name eventually became the title of the film that we know. Early in pre-production, Creggor reportedly reached out to multiple financiers and distributors, including A24 and Neon, but was first rejected. J.D. Lifshitz and Raphael Margulis agreed to produce the film through their Boulder Light Pictures banner, and they were later joined by Vertigo Entertainment. And I was listening to a part of an interview where he was talking about how it just went kind of back and forth, because he initially acquired about, I think it was like $2 million to do this through one of the production companies. And when they were getting ready to shoot, they had things lined up because they were shooting in Bulgaria, but they ended up losing their the money because they needed a little bit more. They had everything set, ready to go, and then they lost everything. And then he ended up calling some more people, and they were like, you know what, we are interested in this. And that's finally when they got them a little bit more money, and they went full steam ahead. But crazy thing is, Zac Efron was the first choice to play AJ, because Creggor originally envisioned this as a beefcake kind of himbo. However, when Efron turned down the role, Creggor decided to take the character's image in a different direction and cast Justin Long for his warm and disarming, charming, lovable presence on screen, which he thought would make AJ more engaging to the audience. Which I think it does, because if it had been like that kind of, you would have. I think it gives a little more air of mystery to what he did. Like when because he's saying, "Oh, I'm a nice guy. I would never do that to this girl." But if it had been like someone more like Zac Efron being like playing this kind of himbo, you would be more like, "Yeah, you probably did it." But I think having Justin Long, because I think Justin Long plays it great enough that you kind of feel like maybe he didn't. Maybe she's seeing things in the wrong way. I don't know, right? But the same year, Lee brought in Roy Lee, who's from Vertigo. He brought in Bill Skarsgård, who had previously worked with Lee on It and It Chapter 2, obviously, to co-star and serve as executive producer. Barbarian began principal photography in 2021, and that was in Bulgaria, like I had said. But the crazy thing is that they built the neighborhood of Brightmoor of Detroit there. So they built that whole thing in Bulgaria, which is crazy because it looks just like, I mean, if you were to say that's not Detroit, I'd be like, what? And I still was like, are you serious? Yeah, it was pretty crazy that they got it to look, like that, like a neighborhood straight out of 1980s Detroit. But then in April 2021, Eric Tivitin, I guess I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. He's the main film financier and Logical Pictures founder. He died of cancer, so they were unsure of the film's future. Roy Lee then secured financial backing from New Regency, who increased the budget to 4.5, and as a result, 20th Century Studios became the film's distributor, stemming from a prior distribution deal between Regency and the Walt Disney Studios, 20th Century's parent division, obviously. Everyone knows that Walt Disney bought 20th Century Fox, well, not Fox, but 20th Century a while back. That's how they got back all their X-Men characters and the Fantastic Four. So it's crazy that when you think about this movie being like like it's a Disney movie in the end of it, because it's produced, well, I mean, you could count it since it's by 20th Century Studios, but really it's just a distributor. So but yeah, let's get into a little bit of the trivia of the film. Crazy thing is that the film is set on 476 Barbary Street. The year 476 was the year when the Barbarians invaded Rome, and director Creggor says that he insists that this is unintentional and purely coincidental. Probably. I mean, sometimes that just happens where like they give it a random number and then it turns out that it's like the kind of synchronicity kind of thing where it's like, oh wow, who knew that would have, been what that would have been that year. Although not officially credited in any way, Jordan Peele was an invisible hand in shaping the eventual story. Star Georgina Campbell tells IndieWire in an interview, writer-director Zach Creggor is good friends with Jordan Peele, and I think he's spoken to Jordan Peele a lot while he was writing the film. And Jordan Peele saw an early cut of it as well. Campbell said he definitely was kind of part of the essence of the movie. And honestly, I think that's amazing. I love Jordan Peele. And the fact that like he has any kind of connection kind of adds a little bit to it. I mean, not saying that to take away from Creggor himself, right? Because he proved that he was a great first time director, just like Jordan Peele did. But it's just kind of crazy that you're able to get like your friend who happens to be. So it would be like it's like when George Lucas gets like Steven Spielberg to look at something, right? It's like you're getting someone of like a higher quality. I'm not saying of yourself than yourself, but you're getting someone higher in the public opinion that they see this person as, oh yeah, wow, you got them to come on to look at it. Oh, okay, so then this might be pretty good, especially when like Jordan Peele has had like hit after hit after hit for being his for like he's had just 3 films and then he's produced like a couple of films, and it's just kind of crazy when you think about that. It's crazy to me. The film's special effects are largely done practically, as Creggor had a soft rule for himself not to use any technology that John Carpenter didn't have while making The Thing back in 1982. They said that the biggest digital effects shot in the film is the grass in the 80s flashback after on-set efforts to grow or fake it failed, which is kind of crazy because it looks like it's there. Like, I'm just always surprised when technology and especially CGI is used in such a like this is the practical way to use CGI, not to like be over the top or to create all this stuff. It's to subtly add in something that you couldn't do yourself. So like that grass looks like it's there. Like it looks like it fits into the scene. It's seamless, and that's when you know it's great CGI because you can't even tell. Screen aspect ratio changes from today's widescreen to an older standard ratio when the story shifts from the present day to the 1980s, which I always love that in films when they do that, when they change the aspect ratio to fit the setting in which I think the Grand Budapest Hotel does that really well, where it starts off set at a certain time and the aspect ratio is set like it was, and then it goes further and further down the rabbit hole as you get into the story further and further. And it's just I love that little touch because it's like you don't really notice it at first. Sometimes it's a big jump, but it's just kind of crazy that like most people aren't going to notice that. It's only for film buffs that are going to notice and sit here and be like, oh yeah, I like the way that they did that. But it's a great touch. I like that they did that. One last thing. Justin Long's character is killed when the mother claws out his eyes. This is, I think, maybe a nod to Jeepers Creepers, but I don't know, because I feel like Creggor wrote this without Long being the person that they were intending to have, which is what they had stated earlier, because they wanted Zac Efron at first. So I feel like this is kind of a stretch because I'm seeing people say that it's a nod to Jeepers Creepers, but I really don't believe it is. It is like coincidental, but I think that's all it really is. Alright guys, so let's move on to the kill counter. Kill counter. In this film, Barbarian, there are 5 total deaths. The first death we see on screen is Keith. That's Bill Skarsgård's character. Kind of comes out of nowhere, because we're set up for a twist that he's gonna be a weirdo, and like he knew everything all along, that maybe he's setting everything up, and then and even right up until like when he dies, like you're still thinking like. Because it's weird, because, like, why did he go after seeing the room? Why did he keep going down the hall? Like, when he opened, like, the other door, like, he kept going down, and then then like something got him, right? Because he's like, oh, my leg or whatever. And it just sounds very like suspicious. And then, bam, out of nowhere, he gets his skull rammed repeatedly against the tunnel wall by the mother. And it's just crazy. It just comes so out of nowhere. It's just bam. Like, god damn. That was kind of gruesome. And then the second death we see is Frank, played by Richard Brake. He commits suicide by shooting himself in the head with a revolver after he's found by AJ in his bed. You know, not wanting to face up for the horrible atrocities he's caused. Bang! You know, killed himself. And then moving on, we'll go on to Andre, James Butler's character. He gets his arm torn off, and then he gets his skull crushed in after being repeatedly bashed in his head by the mother with his own severed arm. It's a great but sad kill, especially this character who's been trying to help them the whole, or at least been helping Tess the whole entire time, trying to get her away, trying to make her like aware that like this place is not safe, and you know, and he's survived this whole time too, understanding when the mother's gonna, like, knowing how far she goes, when she comes out at night and all that. And it's crazy because he survived up until this point, and then, you know, and he gets his arm torn off and beaten with it. Then it's JJ Gilbride, played by Justin Long. He gets his eyeballs gouged out and his head ripped in half by the mother with her fingernails. Justin Long played this character so well, you know, as a jerk, and like somebody you're like, okay, you kind of deserve the death in the end of in the film, because literally he has done everything he can to, like, and Tess put herself like in a situation where it's like, dang, she not only went back for you, dude, and then you shot her because he got the gun that Frank committed suicide with, and he ends up shooting Tess, and then having to like help carry her out, and then literally pushes her off of the water tower so that like the mother will chase after her, and just to save himself. And in the end, he still ends up getting killed, which it's completely deserved, especially for the character that he plays in this movie. It's ridiculous. And finally, the mother, shot through the face by Tess Marshall with a revolver. And in the end, it's you're kind of a little sad because you're like, this person, well, yeah, this person, monster, whatever, you know, it's not their fault that they're like this. This is the fault of Frank, the man who continuously, you know, abused women and abused the children that the women had, and a long line of, and you can call, and honestly, that's why it's called Barbarian. This man is the Barbarian, and you know, it's no fault of her own. This is how she's grown up, but at the same time, like she just doesn't understand, and it's, I mean, it's for the best to put her out of her misery like that, because she was living a horrible, horrible life. But at the same time, it is still a little sad when she shoots her, because you're like, it's not this poor person's fault. It's just a product of a horrible, horrible thing, horrible, horrible acts. But overall, yeah, kind of crazy that this movie doesn't have more deaths in it, especially for being so like crazy and ridiculous. At least the deaths that we see, but I mean, the deaths that we get are pretty gruesome. Alright, so this is time for my final thoughts on the film. Overall, this movie is amazing. Honestly, I will say 100%, if you did not see this movie, see it. If you have seen it, I would say watch it again. I watched part of it again the other day, and I was like, man, this movie is so good. It's set up so well. Like the tenseness, the intensity that he is able to build in the beginning of this film. The parts with Tess and Keith, where you're not knowing whether or not to trust this character, especially because everything is set up for you to be like, just get out of there. Just get out of there. Find somewhere else to go. I know there's literally like no other place you can go to, like, but just get out of there. Don't go sleep just get out of this neighborhood. Like, leave. Like every little thing, like from like him saying to share the Airbnb, to him being like, oh, let's drink, to him, just little things that he does here and there. But like overall, when you find out the twist in the middle of the film, and you're like, whoa, did not see that coming. Kind of crazy, out of nowhere. And then the idea to not only cut away once to a random character that we did not know we needed for this film, but then also again to cut away to another random character that we didn't even know we needed as background for this film. It's kind of crazy too unto itself. So we're getting two cutaways to two different, one to a separate time period altogether, to just to explain the background of the film, and then one to explain a character who's going to show up and be like the co-lead eventually. And I think it works perfectly, because if we did not, and this character had just shown up, or we had started with AJ and then we cut back to her, and like all of it would have been ruined. I feel like all of the tenseness, all of the stress, all of the what the hell is going on in this film would have been ruined. And even if you would have, the only thing I could think of would be to put the flashback sequence first, and then kind of come back later, and you're kind of like, well, what the hell did that have to do with anything? And then I kind of explain it later, but that's the only thing I could think of you could like move around, but I would not say move anything around. It works perfectly, and this movie is a perfect like first time director, like amazing. You knocked it out of the park. I want to see what he can do more, especially if like this is your like I don't I don't even know where I'm going with that, because I just want to see more from them, and the fact that like I think it's something with like comedy and horror. Because Zach Creggor is from Whitest Kids You Know, or The Whitest Kids I Know, and they were a comedy group for a while, and they're hilarious. And honestly, it's like the same thing with Jordan Peele. Key and Peele, they did comedy so well, and it's just so strange that like you can take comedy, you kind of flip it, and there you got horror, right? And it works so perfectly well, because you could just kind of see that in these, in some of their, like earlier takes in like comedy, when you go back and watch, because there's some things in Key and Peele you can go back and you watch and you're like, yeah, I can totally see this guy going into horror. And the same thing I could say with Zach Creggor. And I just love, and this is the cast is amazing. I love that you got Bill Skarsgård to play this character that you're thinking, oh, he's a weirdo, and then it ends up flipping on your head, and you're like, oh shit, this guy's not a weirdo. He's not. He gets killed. He's like the first person to get killed, and then I think it's just everybody plays their part so well in this film too, and you just God. There's so much. This is one of my favorite films from this year. It was a genuine surprise, and I love that horror is still going strong in the year 2022, soon to be 2023. Yeah, honestly, check it out if you haven't seen it. Like I said, if you have seen it, go back and watch it again. This is like 2 thumbs up for me, guys. Well, thank you all for listening to this new episode of Out from the Horrorbox. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe so you will get every new episode downloaded, or at least queued up for you, ready to go. I wish that, I could get a little bit more people, a bigger audience. I'm not saying like oh man, I'm so like down in the dumps about it. But I just wish more people would listen, subscribe, spread the word about this. Just because I want to share as much as I can with people. I want people to hear this, and I want them to know that I'm here for you guys. So if you want anything specifically to be covered, or you want me to talk about anything in particular, you can always email me at horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send me a message directly on Twitter at horrorboxpod, or on Instagram at horrorboxpodcast. Just because I really want to get out as much content as I can. And for a while we did take a break, but now we're going to get back into the full swing of everything. So hopefully I'll be able to bring you, I know I'm going to do another episode for VHS 99. I'm going to do one, something for the holiday that's coming up. We'll get some more Oops All Scaries out there for you guys. But yeah, is there anything you guys want me to talk about? Anything related to ghosts, aliens, cryptids? Is there any games you want me to talk about? Is there any TV shows you want me to talk about? I'm gonna start getting into TV stuff soon, especially because we know that Stranger Things is coming to an end soon, and I want to start getting into that. We'll also get another episode for Halloween, and but yeah, you guys just let me know and keep listening. Subscribe us, comment, just leave me some reviews. I'm trying to, like I always say, I try to get as much social media as I can. It's not my strong suit, so hopefully I'll be able to soon. But we'll see you next episode and discover what comes out from the horror box.